for those of you that don't know, I'm Maggie, and we are back today with another Money Matters video. The first one that I did a couple of weeks ago focused all on saving in your 20s or early 30s, just getting started early, and then some financial tips to implement into your life. So different ways to save and just be more financially responsible. And then from that video, I kind of requested you to put different things in the comments that interested you. If I brought up a topic that was kind of new and you wanted to hear more about it, throw it in the comments, and that will help me build out this Money Matters series. And y'all really followed through, but I think that the overwhelming request was just to do some sort of budgeting video, because I talked a lot about saving in that first video, and I realize now I probably should have started with the budgeting video so that you can even come up with a number that you can save each month that's prudent. So today we're talking all about a budget. Now this is budget 101, like very, very basic. But my goal with this series is to talk broadly, talk generally, and introduce you to very basic topics so that you can use those tools to apply them to your specific situation. And because so much of saving and investing is all about prioritization and things that are important to you and what your specific financial goals are, I can't really effectively answer very specific questions for you. But what I can do is provide you with the tools to answer those questions for your specific situation. So today's video is just all about creating your budget so that you actually know how much you have to save, or maybe you need to cut back on your spending habits because you don't have anything to save. In general, budgets are made on a monthly basis. So you take your monthly income, you subtract out your monthly expenses, and then that gives you everything that you have left over, and you have to determine what to do with that. So there are a lot of technical terms associated with that very basic concept. So I wanted to walk through what some of those are with you today and give you concrete examples of each so that you can go start building out your budget. So the first step in creating a monthly budget is to determine what your income is. So a couple of income examples, this would be your employer paycheck that you receive monthly, or most people receive it 2 times monthly, any investment account earnings, or you could have some sort of like hobby revenue stream, just like I have YouTube, so I get paid monthly from Google, so I need to count that income in my regular income. So another thing that I want to point out here that's a big flag, asterisk, whatever you want to say, is you only want to count your fixed income, the income that you can count on coming every single month. Things that you would exclude from this is any sort of bonus. Even if you know your bonus is going to be, I don't know, $5,000 that year, you never know what might happen. A worldwide pandemic could hit and your company could choose to not honor those bonuses, which happened to a ton of people this year. So if you would have budgeted for that, you would have really been in hot water because you wouldn't have had that money coming in, and so then your entire budget would be off. So definitely be sure to exclude any sort of one-off income or any sort of expected bonus, because a bonus is just that, it's bonus, it's not your regular income. Another thing that I like to point out here too is that I do not count my investment income in my income monthly, because my whole goal with investment is to throw the money in there and let it grow over time. I have plenty of time until I retire, and I don't want to touch that money. So I don't even include that investment income in my monthly budgets because I'm never going to touch it, spend it, use it, anything. Now, a good way to figure out what your income is I would recommend downloading like 3 to 5 months of bank statements. So after you get a good holistic look at your income, it's time for you to factor in your expenses. And I have these expenses broken out into 2 different categories. The first one that we're going to hit on is fixed expenses. So these are expenses that have a defined amount that show up every single month. This is not an exhaustive list. I just wanted you to get your wheels turning on things that fit into this category. So again, these are expenses that have a defined amount, they never change, and you pay them every single month. Couple of examples, at least in our case, would be our mortgage, internet costs, because again, that never changes, it's one fee every month, any memberships or subscriptions that you may have. So this could be for streaming services like Spotify in my case, or maybe you have a subscription box that comes every month, you would definitely want to include that here. This could also be your car note, your insurance payment, anything that you pay to childcare monthly. Another example not listed here would be your phone bill. And then I also added savings with an asterisk. So for me, when I first started my job, I told myself, Maggie, you're gonna move $300 to your savings account every single month. So because I'm not allowing that income to be spent, I count that as an expense in this case because I'm never seeing it and it's being subtracted from my income that would be left over at the end of the month. So I count savings in this situation as a fixed expense because for me, I was moving a defined amount over each month. But maybe you're not in the same situation, or maybe you know you have a big bill coming up. Like we just bought windows for our house. In February, we're gonna have a big outlay of money, so maybe we won't save as much that month to pay for that window bill. And so in that case, that would be a flexible expense. So now it's a good time to talk about the second category of expenses that you need to subtract out. Another term for this is variable expenses. That's the term that I learned and used growing up. That's because the amounts vary each month. Now they can be generally the same, give or take a couple of dollars here and there, but if I can't tell you what the dollar and cent amount is every single month, I'm typically allocating it to this variable expense category. But again, doesn't really matter how you allocate it out because in the end, you're just gonna take your income, subtract out all of your expenses, and arrive at what's left over. This is just for you to keep an eye on things or to flag irregularities if you notice that one amount is going way up one month. So some examples of variable expenses. I say utilities because utilities are typically based on usage. So because they don't have a defined amount per month, I like to put them in the variable expense category. Also groceries, because you never know what's gonna happen. You may not feel like cooking and you wanna eat out a couple of times, and so your grocery bill could fluctuate from month to month just depending on the circumstance, or maybe you're vacationing or something. So to that same point, restaurants would also be a variable expense. Another example would be personal care, so that could be a haircut or getting your nails done or something along those lines that you tend to do routinely. Transportation costs, I used to have to pay to park at the client where I worked, and so that was definitely a monthly expense that I needed to account for, but it was all dependent on the number of days that I went into the office, so that was variable. And then also savings. We kind of already talked about this example, so if you're not saving a fixed amount every month and it kind of varies based on your situation, you could always put that in the variable expense category. So the next step is for you to determine your disposable income, and all you're gonna do is take your monthly income amount that you found first and subtract out all of those expenses, both fixed and variable, and then you will arrive at your disposable income. This is a really big step in building your budget because this can help you identify if you're spending more money than you're making each month, and in that case, it's a really big red flag. That should cause you to go back and figure out where your money is going and why you're spending more than you're making. But if you have a pretty hefty amount and you're realizing, oh wow, I'm spending way less than I'm making, now is a good time to figure out what to do with that disposable income. What to do with your disposable income is completely up to you. I can't give you the guidance on that. You're gonna have to do some prioritization and some soul searching to figure out the best way to use that disposable income. But I can tell you that the worst thing that you can do with that disposable income is to spend it all. I definitely recommend saving or paying down debt with some portion of that because you will really thank yourself later, especially if you're young. All right, so for me, I'm a massive rule follower. And so in these situations, I'm like, cool, I found my budget. I know what my disposable income is each month, but I just want some guidance. Like, what are some general rules? And so there is one general rule that I'm sure some of you have heard about, and it's called the 50-30-20 rule. So it's just an allocation of what you should do with your income, and it's one blanket suggestion. So again, these percentages, the 50, 30, and 20, may kind of move around for you. You may have like a 60, 10, 30 or something along those lines, but this is just a really great starting point. And this rule suggests that 50% of your income should be spent on essentials. So this is when you can go back to your expenses and you can figure out a percentage of your total expenses and how all of that falls out. But essentials are things like food, shelter, water. That should make up the largest majority of your expenses each month. This rule then states that 30% of your income should be spent on wants. So in this case, I like to think of it as our restaurant expenses when I just don't feel like cooking. Like, I want to eat out, I don't need to eat out, but that's just an additional expense. going to get my hair cut, maybe buying 1 or 2 things that month. That's what 30% should be allocated to. And then the last 20% should be going toward those investments or savings accounts, or maybe even your debt repayment. So that is the general rule. So if you realize that you're spending way more on your wants category each month than you are on your essentials, then it may be an opportunity for you to cut back and have a little bit more disposable income to allocate toward your savings or your debt repayment. So now that we've talked about creating the budget and then taking a high-level view of your budget and making sure that the expenses each month are actually going toward useful categories, now I wanted to equip you with a couple of tools that can help you in this budget process. Now, one big disclaimer for all of these apps is that you do have to link your bank or your credit card or something like that to them for them to give you an overview of your finances. And if you're not comfortable with that, then none of these tools are gonna be helpful. So it's been a pleasure telling you about budgets so you don't have to sit through this part. In general, I've found these apps to be pretty safe. I've never had security concerns. The first one that I love is Mint. This is like the overall tool that I feel like can do everything. This is really great for setting specific budgets for yourself each month. You link your credit cards and your bank account to it so it can kind of show you your overall net worth at all times, because it factors in all of the money in your bank account, all of the debt that you owe on credit cards or your mortgage or something like that, and then it tells you what you have left over. You can also link your investment accounts so that you can see that factored in as well. But with Mint, you also have the ability to set savings goals, which I think is really cool. And so it'll automatically factor in what your disposable income is after you've accounted for all of the expenses that you've physically spent that month, and then all of the money that you should be saving to reach those savings goals. So in general, if you were to only use one tool, I would recommend Mint. But some additional tools that I find helpful, especially for identifying monthly expenses, is Truebill. Truebill is this service that tracks recurring expenses each month. So that's where you can see like, oh gosh, I didn't realize I was paying this 99 cents per month for additional data in Google. I don't need that. I can get rid of that and save $12 a year, which I know isn't huge, but to me, every penny counts. It's just a really good way for you to identify things, or maybe subscriptions that you forgot to cancel and you're not even utilizing them. That is everything for this budgeting video. Stay tuned for more videos in this Money Matters series. And if you missed the first one, I'll be sure to have it linked in the description box below, along with several of my other videos that I've done a couple years back, like about credit scores or my favorite credit cards, if that's the stage that you're in. But in general, if you like this video, then like it. Stick around, subscribe, join the community, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.